Paul tells us that there is nothing more important than knowing Jesus, and I gotta say, I totally agree.
Yeah. I like that statement. I think it's true. But do our lives reflect that statement?
That's a really good question. I think we should explore that more. Welcome to the Bible Story Podcast. My name is Bradon, and my co-host with the Mo-host is Jon Draymart.
I like it when you say things like that. Makes me feel good. Hey, we've got a really cool event coming up for some youth.
Yes, we do. So we have a youth retreat, which we haven't been able to do in so long, and so I'm really excited about it. It's titled The Challenge, which should have like a firework sound or a gong sound behind it. So it's titled The Challenge. And
Gong. Not every time?
Not every time, but
Okay.
thank you. We're going to approach it from two different challenge ideas. One, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to play ridiculous games and, have some competitive spirit involved. Two, we're going to talk about why it's so challenging to live as a follower of Christ, especially when we're outside of summer camp or outside of church or maybe outside of a community with, like-minded friends.
Yeah. So this is November 11th to 13th.
Correct.
Starts at 7 p.m.
on the Friday and pick up at like 12 to 12:30 on the Sunday.
So, yeah, be there. It's going to be a great time.
Yes.
Now, last week in Philippians, in the letter of Philippians, we looked at the idea of being known as a Christian, which is kind of a similar topic to the theme for, or the question that you're looking at during the retreat.
Yeah, we're kind of like, listening to the youth. It's been a lot of what you guys have brought forward to us, a lot of questions that we've had, a lot of kind of themes that have emerged from summer camp. And so, being known as a Christian, we talked about last week. We talked about wearing it as a badge and kind of people, without a doubt knowing. And now we're, continuing that conversation of why is that such a challenge, or why am I even afraid to do so?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things with that really make it challenging. Now, we need to know that Philippians is a thank you letter from Paul to the church in Philippi. And the people in Philippi, they were dealing with a lot of hard things. Persecution, a lot of disadvantages because of their beliefs. And so you got to understand that life was not easy for them to be known as a Christian.
Right. And here's the thing, Jon. We have, again, spent time, talking and researching and listening to youth. And I think that's something that we've learned that is, we relate to the people of Philippi.
Yeah.
We relate to the people of Philippi this way. So the idea is it's hard. It's hard to live as a Christian, and especially it's hard to connect with people sometimes that share those beliefs or that can help in that, walk with God. And so the two most common kind of phrases we hear are, one, is there any way that I can connect with camp people outside of summer? So whether that's my cabin or counselors or cabin leaders or John or myself, like, how do we get in touch? And the second, phrase we hear the most is like, I really miss those conversations or questions we used to have, whether that's, the campers asking us questions or us asking the campers questions.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. And in fact, I've heard that so much from youth and even my own kids who are teenagers, that this past Saturday we were at a concert here at Covenant Bay.
Yeah.
And we were gathered, some of the youth were gathered together, and I said, hey, what are your thoughts on like just coming together and doing a little small group? So this past Tuesday, we watched the Bible Story podcast.
Sweet.
Which is a little weird, watching yourself, but it's not about me.
Here, kids, watch this video about me.
Not about me.
Not about
at
you.
all.
Just with you in it.
But then we discussed the questions, and it was, I think it was a really good opportunity for them just to connect with each other, encourage each other. And, I think it went well. I hope they thought it went well too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we've been inspired by this.
Yes.
Right? And inspired by you guys and your questions and
really your desire to connect with one another.
Took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say that. But yeah, so here's the thing. We want to, give you that. We want to help answer that question for you of where can these things happen, and we're actually going to create a space for that. So tune in. We're going to post about it online. You can find it on, at Bible Story Pod on Instagram or covenantbay.ca on our website, and we're going to post the information. What it's going to be is an online conversation. We're going to watch the podcast. We're going to go through the discussion episodes. You're going to be able to see familiar faces, invite friends, and it's just going to be that place where you can come and grow in your faith.
Yeah. It'll be a great time. I look forward to it. So get some information on our website. If nowhere else, you'll be able to find it there.
Yeah. We'll be posting it everywhere.
Everywhere where we post anyways.
I'll put some on the trees outside.
All right. Well, I got a question for you.
Yes. So many questions.
Not a question.
Okay.
Well, I guess it ends up in a question, but here it goes. We say all the time on this podcast and elsewhere
Yes.
that there's nothing more important than a growing relationship with Jesus Christ.
Correct. I got it right. A+.
We do that all the time. So I want you to speak.
Okay.
I guess this is the question part, but I'd like you to speak to that youth who has some doubts about God, about a relationship, or what even a relationship with God even means. Like it's kind of a weird concept.
Okay.
And maybe has some hesitation. Okay.
Gotcha.
So they know of God, they know
Right.
about him. Maybe they've even experienced him in some fashion, but they're just like, I don't know if this is for real.
Like, why does the relationship matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So speak to that person.
Okay. Not to be put on the spot at all.
Well, I'm putting you on the spot.
Great. No, this is, first of all, the question is really important. And I appreciate John asking it, but seriously, for any campers or staff who've ever asked this type of question, like, I think it's so important for us to be okay with questions. Yeah. Be okay with sitting in the uncertainty or having doubts or being confused. John and I still, we are the first ones to say we do not know everything about this.
Whoa. I've never said, I pretty much know everything about everything.
John and I don't know everything about this.
It's true.
and being able to just be okay with sometimes asking the hard questions is really good. So kudos to you. Second of all, I think really what underlines this question is the idea of, hey, Bradon, I maybe have had an experience personally or emotionally, or I understand faith intellectually or with my brain because that's how I've been raised, but I've never experienced God. And so it's saying I understand it one way, but not the other way. My head and my heart are kind of disconnected. Yeah. What I say to that is the relationship is so important because that's what then allows us to experience eventually both of those things. And it might take a while, or you might do it really fast. It's different for everybody. The journey, the walk is different. But eventually you're going to have experiences that say, man, I'm reading the Bible right now and the historical context is super exciting. That would be your brain understanding what it is.
Yeah.
Or, man, I was praying one night and, I felt the presence of God more than I've ever felt it before. And that's an emotional response. And in the relationship and just being open to stepping into that is what gives you those experiences. And so eventually you're not going to be able to explain everything, or people around you aren't going to have all the answers. And I wish we could, but that step of faith is really the first part of it to say, okay, I'm in this relationship and I get to walk now.
No, at some point we got to go from the shallow end and we just got to jump into the deep end, right?
Yeah.
So we're walking through Philippians, and we're in chapter 3, and we're going to look at verses 1 through 11. And specifically, we're going to look at kind of that verse 7 through 9, 10 area.
And what I think we get here is we're actually looking at some of Paul's own growth.
Yeah, that's right.
His growing relationship with God and why it matters to him.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that, we got to look at Paul's, his background of Paul himself. And he actually describes himself as one of those people who's just kind of, it appears that he has it all together.
Yes.
Right? Like he knows what's what. But not just that, but like he's been born into some privilege. He's a Roman citizen. He's been born to a Jewish family that's kind of up there, and so he's got a lot of opportunities. His family's got enough wealth that they can put him in some schooling, and he's very well educated.
Let me interrupt.
Sorry.
Because I will.
And
okay, so Paul was basically born for success. Like he had all the odds stacked in his favor. And I think, like, take a moment and just reflect to yourself, I'm sure you've saw this person, you've interacted with them. Maybe you have tried to be this person. I find, there's people that I know and I see them from afar and I think, man, they have got it together. They're on time. They're dressed well. They're smart. They're happy. People are following them. They're listening to what they're saying. They're in great shape, like all of these things. And then I think to myself, man, I really got to put on, like, fake it till you make it, because I am not that person. And so then I get anxious, but then I think, okay, I used to be really bad at lying, but like I'll put that face on. I'll say, yep, that's me too. Like I'm in there because I want to be included and feel belonging to that sort of posture, that sort of success.
Yeah. So when we look at Paul and we can compare ourselves to other people who maybe appeared a little bit like Paul in the sense of that they had it all figured out. And Paul talks about in verse 7 and verse 8 that it's like it's all garbage. Right. All of those things that he thought were worth something, that brought him worth to his identity, to his core being, he's like, it's all worthless.
And he worked really hard to get those things. Like he was like, that's me. Like,
yeah, go Paul.
Go me.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, like, all of that stuff that had he tied his identity to, the success, the name, the the Hebrew of Hebrews, like I am the top of the top. He's now saying, like, actually that identity is nothing.
And that would include religiously. Like he states himself that he says, I followed the law, which was, his religious duty as a Jewish person. He said, I followed the law flawlessly, which I certainly can't say. Right. But that's a big statement.
Right. Like almost being so, he's bragging in a bad way.
It almost appears in the first part of this chapter that he's bragging, but he's setting the reader up to show how different he looks at things today.
Yeah, the contrast between the two.
That's right.
Okay, so take us through that then. So Paul has now spoken of really how his platform of where he could succeed. Take us through that and then what changed? Yeah,
so he says, all of these things I have given up for the sake of knowing Christ. Like he believes that knowing Christ is so foundational to his existence that it's all of these other things are worthless. In fact, his identity is not wrapped up in those things, but his identity is wrapped up in the grace that he's been given and or has been shown, and the righteousness of God that he's been given through faith, which I think is a pretty profound thing.
Yeah. So really he's saying, like, I'm putting down this identity of the person who succeeds, the person who's the best at the things, and I'm allowing myself to receive this identity that I have been given by God.
That I'm not worthy of these things, yet now I get to live into them.
That I haven't really worked for, but I get to say, okay, I'm trusting God and I'm stepping towards that.
And God says, yeah, you are worthy, which is a pretty profound switch in our identity.
And he says that to all of us.
He does.
He says all of us get that given to us. We get our identity in Christ versus our identity in the world.
Yeah.
And we get to choose to walk into that.
Yeah.
So, okay, sum that up in a nice, simple manner. Because the chapter's wordy.
Yep.
And we maybe have fallen into that same thing. But what's a way that we can let that stick with us?
So essentially, we are no longer identified by our own good stuff. Whether that be things that we strive for, our good looks, whatever it might be.
Okay, so you can't earn your identity.
No, you can't earn your identity at all. That's a great way of saying it. We can't earn our identity, but we can be bestowed or gifted with our identity.
Big word. Great word.
That is a great word.
Bestowed is like it has this like glamour or like weightiness or like...
like think of when a knight is a person is knighted.
When the night is young.
Not that kind of knight. But when a person is knighted,
Yeah.
they're bestowed with this great honor.
Right.
Now, the knight has probably done something to deserve that or
Right.
to be recognized.
But the king who's like, places the sword on each.
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying.
And
They're giving them, like, some high honor.
that's right. And in light of that, they're getting this honor. We actually, with God, we're bestowed this idea of righteousness, but there's nothing in us that really counts us worthy of receiving that, except God saying, I count you as worthy, which is pretty profound.
That's amazing. Okay, so today we have looked at Paul's growth. We've talked about why it's important for us to grow. So, John, bring us into our growth tip.
Growth tip time.
Growth tip time! A growth tip is a way for us to grow in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so how do we then take this and grow ourselves into it?
Okay, so I think we can brag, we can talk big, we can flex a little bit about Jesus. Did I use that word right?
I don't know.
I don't either. If I did, you can like give me a thumbs up. Or if I didn't,
Yeah.
you can I don't know.
Shake your head. Or
Yeah, just give me a shake.
Okay, I got to say though, I don't like when people brag. Like I get this, I'm like,
Right.
like kind of stop talking about yourself.
Totally understand that. I don't like it either. But think of it this way. Have you met my friend Keith? Keith?
Yeah.
He's our coworker. Keith is one of the most genuine and kind people I have ever met. And he will go out of his way to do good things and help others. And it's really quite remarkable, actually. So,
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Do you want to meet Keith now?
Yes. So okay, I see it. So it's like a humble brag, but you're not bragging about yourself.
No, it's not about
It's
me
not
at all.
about you. Okay. I like that. So brag about God.
Brag about God and throw your story into it.
Yeah. So you guys, I mean, we've said this before at camp, or you might hear it at church, the idea of testimony. And that's what this is sharing your story, but it's not always only how you started your relationship with God, but it's all of the things that God is doing in your life. If you're excited about what he's doing, about the change in your life, share that with people.
Yeah.
It's contagious and it allows people to say, wow, God is really moving.
Yeah. Share your story and highlight what God is doing. That's awesome. Hey, you guys, you can't earn your identity. It's just impossible. It is bestowed upon you.
So again, our last reminder, be encouraged by this episode, be encouraged by each other, and don't forget that we are praying for each and every one of you, and we encourage you to pray with each other as well.
Don't forget the retreat and the small group discussion that's we got coming out here this coming week.
The challenge. Yes, small group discussions. Stay tuned. Instagram and covenantbay.ca. Chat with you guys next week.
Take care. Hey guys, we're about to discuss some questions in regards to the episode, You Can't Earn Your Identity.
Yeah, this week we continue to learn from Paul in Philippians chapter 3, and really we see Paul's own growth. He talks about kind of how he used to live, what he would identify, as his strengths versus what he hopes to be known for now.
So what we want you guys to do is make a list. This is question 1. We want you to make a list that is what you are known for, right? What gives you maybe a sense of worth? What is part of your identity, right?
Yeah.
So make this list, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about it, and we're going to compare a few things.
Jumping into question number 2. So you have the list in front of you, and here's kind of the hard part now is, how does this speak of your identity? Kind of look at the things that you've placed there. Are they pointing towards God? Are they bragging about God? Or are they, kind of boasting yourself? Are you an image of what Paul used to be like versus an image of Paul really hoping to glorify God?
Yeah. And just know that we're all in this together, and this is not this is not something that is meant to beat any of us up, but just to give us an understanding of where we are at today.
And where we're trying to find our identity.
That's right.
So hit pause and discuss that question.
Okay, our final question. Paul really spoke a lot about how his identity is found in Christ and how that was bestowed upon him rather than him just figuring it out on his own and showing how he is worth people's attention or at least respect and admiration.
Again, it wasn't something that he could earn.
No.
It was bestowed by
That's
God.
right. So we just made these lists, and we've also learned about this idea of God bestowing our identity to us. So we want you to compare, we want you to contrast God's identity for you, which is things like righteousness, that he loves us, that he has given us grace, that we're in relationship with him, versus the things that are on your list that you've already written down. So hit pause and discuss.
Hey, thank you all for joining us. Remember, as we talk about this, just as the Philippians or the people of Philippi, we're meant to be in community. And we got two things coming up in this community for you. One is our youth retreat, The Challenge. Boom. I got to get a better gong noise. And two, we're going to do these discussion episodes live. And so tune in, see us, find us on Facebook or Instagram or covenantbay.ca, and there will be more info how to get in touch with us.
Hey guys, we love you so much. We're praying for you each week. Make sure you take time to encourage each other and pray for each other. But until next week, have a good one.